What's poppin', people? It's your boy Shaq, aka Black Goku, and yeah, we're just gonna redo the chapter reading for chapter 19. You guys wouldn't have seen the before, but I accidentally forgot like where we were, and I started I was reading 18, but TLDR, we're gonna be starting from a fresh start. We're gonna starting from 0. I know my hair looks crazy. I know I look crazy. I took a nap, woke up, now I'm like on a better track. Anyway, here's what's gonna happen. So, I'm just gonna be rereading chapter 19. I am not going to be speed blitzing it, but I am going to be going a little bit faster than I normally go. And this is just so I can get a little bit more caught up. I had like a little bit of a long day, had some stuff happening a little bit earlier. But, hey, let's say every quarter of the way we get through out of 4, we're going to be drinking. So I'm bricked up, you're bricked up, let's be bricked up together and read ReZero Arc 9 chapter 18. Let's do this. I love you. The world being painted over the power of those non-superficial words of love they heard. But in truth, that did not mean that sound was being produced. The sound of something cracking, the sound of something being shattered, the sound of something being shredded, the sound of something being broken, the sound of something being sliced open, the sound of something being crushed, the sound of something being pulverized, the sound of something being smashed, the sound of something being pierced, the sound of something being hurled downwards, the sound of something, I love you, I love you, I love you. But in truth, that did not mean that sound was being produced. Rather, it was an illusionary sound, that of all being lost. This affection, presented by a sable shadow, transgressed against the soul at the nexus of this world to such a degree. A world where everything was consumed. A world where everything was never-endingly descended into a darkness unfathomable. There, amidst the deep, seemingly boundless darkness, a soul realized that everything, both important and unimportant, had been dissolved. And yet, was it because they were weak? That they did not wish to admit it? No. It was because they were kind. Was it because they were weak? Or that they could not give up? No, it was because they were kind. Was it because they were weak? Or that they could not refuse love? No, it was because they were kind. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. To those whispers of love, they raised their voice, rejecting it with everything they had. But they understood, they very much understood, that even rejecting it with everything they had would not be able to turn it away completely. I love you, 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 I love you. There, a glimpse of possibility was caught. With the first, second, and third places in that person's heart having been taken entirely, a glimpse would still be attainable, nonetheless. For the cowardly, for the despicable love that sought to take advantage of this, they felt no sympathy. The consequences of such conceit was inevitably, I love you, love me! There was, love me, 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 love me. They knew this would happen. It was as clear as day. It was like stealing from a baby. It was easier than crushing a tomato, opening closed eyelids, or even breathing in and out. They knew this would happen. Because it was not for the other person's sake, because it was for their own. If one did not have to consider their feelings of others, able to fill one's heart and mind with only their thoughts and feelings, then naturally that would happen. That was by far the most disgraceful aspect of it all. Disgraceful to the point The shame would make one's face burn. I hate you. They felt it. They felt as if their heart was going to freeze. I'm never going to love you. It was as if being said to them and not to anyone else, and they felt they were going to die. However, even that fear of death was much, 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 much better than that was behind what was waiting for them. After all, Petra's handkerchief. They were convinced that the time had finally come and that the noose was about to be slipped around their neck. A band of roughly 500 people had gathered to receive him. That was the troublesome formation arranged by Felt to intercept Aldebaran. Naturally, the moment he left Flam alive, Aldebaran's rebellion would have been communicated to Reinhardt, and he had rushed to the scene, just as expected. As part of that course of events, he fully understood that the self-same information would have been shared with Felt and the Council of Wise Men. In order to estimate the formidable enemies he had fully expected to come after him, Aldebaran's intentions had been to deploy his strongest card, Aldebaran, as a diversion, thus clearing out his own path. However, by the unexpected initiative of a young girl who he had underestimated, his calculations had been set to square one. Good grief. There's too many star players in this world that I can't compete with. I told you this ain't the time to be cracking jokes. As Aldebaran shrugged his shoulders and grumbled, Heinkel shouted at him. No, Heinkel was not yelling at him, but rather at Ye. It was merely that his angered shout at Ye's proposed human sacrifice strategy had miraculously coincided with Aldebaran's mumbling. In any case, as the old man says, this isn't the time for jokes. We're going to deal with it. As his cheeks tightened within his helmet, Aldebaran shoved aside his lament towards the absurd world and called upon his two companions to begin a strategy meeting. Heinkel, his pale face, and Ye, her thin smile unable to be deciphered. Those two, along with the talentless Aldebaran, were the cards in his hand, having used his primary strength as a diversion. A bit shabby, but they don't have their best members either. By dealing with it, what are you planning on doing? To begin with, the opponents, there's roughly 500 enemies, and although they don't look like knights or guards, they've got their fair share of experience with brawling. Also, I'm pretty sure we're up against that little Miss Felt. 500 people? That's quite a lot! Ye put her finger to her lips, impressed at how they were able to gather so many people in such a short amount of time. Aldebaran was in complete agreement. Without taking nearly the best possible moves and strategies, they would not have been able to bring the situation to this point. Wait! 500? And they're not soldiers? What the hell's going on? First of all, how the hell did you even get that information? Stop right there, old man. It doesn't matter how I know the opponent's numbers. What matters is that it's the truth. Besides, we made a deal at the start, remember? If you want the dragon blood, don't go against my plans. People hate a man who can't keep his word, you know. After being reminded, Heinkel fell silent, though visibly frustrated. Heinkel's situation was like that of a horse running with a carrot dangling before its face. Unlike a horse, however, Heinkel's longing could only be satisfied by that particular carrot. Hence, Heinkel could not defy Aldebaran, who dangled the carrot before him. Now that Heinkel-sama has been silenced, what will you do? 500 people is still pretty tough, you know? Aren't you supposed to be the greatest masterpiece of a shinobi to ever made it in Wallachia? Can't you do something about it? Even if you say I'm the greatest masterpiece, I did fail in my assassination attempt. Besides, it's not the job of a shinobi to slaughter 100 or 1,000 people on the battlefield. I'm no blue lightning after all. Well, I guess you're right. The blue lightning, who Ye pouted her lips at as she brought up Cecilus, was somebody whom Aldebaran had also worked together with, though only for a brief time. His abilities were just as the anecdotal exaggeration that Ye had described, and he was a member of the same realm of incomprehensible outliers that included Reinhardt. If Aldebaran had that kind of power, he would have been able to take on even 1,000 people in a head-on collision. But unfortunately, he had given up such lofty aspirations when he was a teenager. Ergo, realistically speaking, it's a fool's errand to venture out into a place where 500 people are waiting for you. We already happen to be in the woods. We'll take a detour such that they can't find us. Judging from the tone of his voice that was thrown at them, it seemed an unreasonable plan to just pretend they were not actually there. But if they exactly where Aldebaran and his henchmen were, if they knew exactly where Aldebaran and his henchmen were, they would have had Gracius launch a surprise attack. So long as that was not the case, they simply knew that they were in the woods, but nothing more. Then, depending on how they maneuvered, they would divide that 500 enemies even further. Alsama, this might be a bit bad. Having decided a course of action just as he was about to move from their position, Ye lightly tugged on his sleeve. When Aldebaran turned to see what was going on, she was looking in the direction where Felt and the others were waiting, and with a worried look in her eyes, she informed him that was, "They seem to be working pretty quickly over there." As Ye spoke, Aldebaran saw the same thing. Logs of firewood producing white smoke being tossed into the forest, one after the other. Well, guess we couldn't hope that he'd just waltz on out here. Indeed, right in the midst of the troop that it deployed across the plain, Felt complained whilst glaring at the forest in which the enemy hid. Enemy, whether it was fine to declare that helmet bastard as such, was a matter she still had some indecision about. However, Al was neither a friend nor an ally who had gone rogue, nor an acquaintance with whom she had deep ties. Alright guys, so far, I do want to say, as always, we're dealing with peak fiction, right? This has been absolutely fucking amazing. Like, this chapter, I know I'm behind a couple chapters, but there's so much going on in regards to we're getting the updates on Petra, right? And you know what? Like, okay, I'm gonna say this right now. One of the best chapters, segments, moments, however you want to rationalize it, whatever you want to put on this exactly, one of the greatest moments in all of ReZero was Subaru's confession to Echidna that he could return by death. That is by and above one of the greatest moments ever to be in ReZero, and the fact that we're essentially getting a retelling of that with it's been a while since I've read Arc 4, but since we're essentially getting that same perspective, but or that same happening, but told from a different perspective. Tape knew that revealing return by death for the first time, everything that he felt in that entire loop, that shit was actually glorious. And now, in hindsight, we know that Petra is going to have to relive everything that he went through during that arc, or during that specific loop. Jesus Christ, man. It's nothing but peak. It's nothing but absolute freaking peak. Huh. Chotto matte, chat. Alright, so. Where are we? Above all, in order to rouse the morale of her gathered troops, calling him an enemy was more effective. Hence, felt plainly proclaimed that helmet bastard, Al, as an enemy. That's... Alright, I know I haven't been giving my opinion too much, like, up until this point, guys, but this does honestly feel like a very crazy betrayal. I'm not going to say that it's the ultimate betrayal. However, given what we know about everyone in the camps and, you know, how everyone feels in the camps, this would kind of come out of nowhere, you know? This would be like one of the people who you would expect to crash out the least, but also not expect to be as strong when crashing out. So, I mean, I'd go as far as to say that this is a very noteworthy crash out in fiction, because, you know, given what we do know about him, like if you guys are like novel readers, assuming you guys are, you know, caught up, you know, we know what he's capable of. He's like Subaru 2.0. He's not like the OG. He doesn't have like the original software to be able to go back far enough to change everything or most things. He sets his timers and he does with that what he will. So oh my god, like now that I think about it, this is one of the best outcomes for like him fighting a villain. I'm not gonna say outcomes necessarily, actually I take that back. This is one of the best interactions and one of the best villains that could have been introduced. It's someone with a similar power to him, like basically the same power, but has a little bit more control, but is less generous with the spawn points, right? Because, you know, he only has like a 15 second like deliberation between like when he's doing shit. And honestly, that matters. 15 seconds, right? Dude. This series, oh my god, like the fact that we're getting this type of villain, like, okay, I'm gonna keep it a stack and then I'm gonna move forward, right? So if you guys had told me during arc 3 or arc 4 that Al was going to be the major villain of an arc, I'd be like, why? Him and Subaru are like friends, like they're comfortable, like they know that they come from the same place. Don't know if Al's backstory is, oh my god, if we get Al's, look, okay, if we get Al's name chapter this arc, I already know it's gonna go crazy. It will be one of the best name chapters in ReZero. Period. Like, it goes without a doubt. No freaking way that it would not get one of the best, get the title for one of the best name chapters in all of ReZero. There's no way. There's no way. So, you know, before I go too crazy about like all of like the rest of my thoughts, we're just gonna keep going. But so far we are, dude, come, like, he's this is the greatest story ever told. Like, just ReZero is just the greatest story ever told. There's nothing that I've consumed or heard of that even has like the possibility of reaching these same heights other than Attack on Titan. But I mean, Attack on Titan's done, and ReZero has broken me, built me up, and taught me more than AOT. Not saying that I needed to be the one who was getting all the teaching, but just letting y'all know that, hey, look, I'm here for a reason. Anyway. And this enemy was within the forest, surrounded by Felt's faction. then there's no doubt about it, right? Otherwise, it'd be a humiliated sucker who just greeted an empty forest with a loud shout. Don't worry so unashamedly, Golden Lion. Indeed, it may only be effective in one eye, but once I narrowed down the scope this much, I'd see them even if I didn't want to. Tinged with a bit of a distinct accent, the one who had answered Felt was the leader of the Balance, a man by the name of Manfred? Within the Balance, it seemed to be customary for one to ink a tattoo of balance scales somewhere on their body as proof of their loyalty towards the organization, but Manfred had gone overboard in proving his faithfulness. He was a person who had inked tattoos onto his shaven head, his face and neck, even his eyeballs, and it was likely that the same went for that layer under his clothes. Oh yeah. Getting your eyeballs tatted? Come on. Like, oh god, I can't imagine. And the eccentricity of his was present not only in his appearance, it extended to his way of being. The divine protection of Farsight. Manfred's left eye, his lone eyeball with no visible tattoos, spun around, goggling with a stare affixed to the forest. Up until a short while ago, that left eye of his also had been inked with tattoos. The reason why the tattoos were now absent was simple. The eyeball occupying the socket was one entirely different. Right now, the eyeball sitting in Manfred's eye socket was the left eye of a man who formerly served as his underling. Okay, as expected. One doesn't quite grow accustomed to the divine protection of another. Still, I saw them. While that might be pretty useful, it's also super gross. How do you do it? I don't dislike your straightforward wording. However, the method of stealing divine protection is one of the Balance's secrets. Without touching upon the method itself, Manfred confirmed the presence of their enemy within the woods. In the past, Felt had experienced torment at the hands of that very divine protection of Farsight, so she had no room to doubt the credibility of the information it rendered. If they ain't gonna come out, then there's no choice but to make him want to come out. Cracking his thick neck, Romaji finished Felt's words. Oh, there we go. Finally, we're getting Romaji. The great strategist had used the results of Manfred's detective divine protection of Foresight to the fullest in order to formulate a stratagem, and had been preparing the next move to be played against the opponent held up in the forest. It's tough for pyro tree lumber to burn while it's still green, so it produces lots of smoke. It doesn't stop fuming easily, even if you spray it with water. This stratagem ought to be ideal. Voicing that, Romaji's proposal was plain and simple: to smoke out Al, led by Gaston and other ruffians who had all took pride in their physical strength. Firewood from pyro trees set alight was being hurled into the forest one after another. As Ramchi had said, the firewood was only producing smoke without spreading their flames to the surrounding, giving rise to a magnificent display of white fumes. The effects of the smoke didn't end at just robbing them of their vision. While there's also a psychological burden, the most worrisome aspect is the suffering that comes with the inhaling it. I bet you'd have a terribly painful coughing fit. That might be similar to what he did when he was trying to get Felt out of... Is that what he was doing when he tried to get Felt out of the Royal Selection during, like, Arc 3? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. We're dealing with nothing short of peak fiction. Absolutely nothing short of peak fiction. Okay. All right. Voicing that, Ramji's proposal was plain and simple: to smoke out Al, led by Gaston and other ruffians who took pride. Oh wait, I already read that. Okay. Just so. It's the agony of hell. Moreover, as he spoke, Ramji narrowed his eyes. Doing so, his gaze turned to Kimberly and his girlfriend Toto, the proprietress of the Flower Prison Garden. They were directing her subordinates to bring about a magical gale and sending it forward into the forest. The induced draft did not hew the trees, but instead gently brushed through the gaps between, a passage of wind, and that was to say, creating a passage for the smoke. The white fumes began to spread through the woods. Far as I know, there's no shortage of people who can shake off poison or deep gashes, and yet, in all my pointlessly long life, I ain't never known someone who could calmly bear the pain of being smoked out. Witnessing his strategy marching closer to fruition, Ramji declared so in a low voice. While that rang pleasantly within Felt's ears, she once again got a keen sense for her foster parent was preeminent with absurdly dangerous knowledge. Okay. What Ramji had done in the past, Felt did not know. Only she understood that it was not something that could be spoken of proudly, and that Ramji himself was ashamed of that past. Oh, I need to read the backstories, man. Oh, I need to read the EXs. That was why, until Ramji decided to speak of it willingly, Felt would not pry. Without prying, this was all she would say. How'd you like that? My Ramji's quite the formidable one, you know. Smoke. The Firewood Town Inn, as he bore witness to it giving rise to white smoke, slowly encroaching through the forest, Aldebaran was astounded at his opponent's unpleasant response. Being surrounded by a large number of people was already the worst, but this was stacked a whole new level of worse on top of that. Those shitheads! They lit a fire?! They're trying to burn us to death?! Wait, let me redo that. Those shitheads! They lit a fire! They're trying to burn us to death! Please calm down. An incendiary attack would leave them unable to confirm the corpses, and it would be quite possible for them to get caught up in it as well. When you combine foolish and strategy, you get a bad plan. Our opponent may have just attached a bad plan, or enacted a bad plan. She's a brat from the slums, you know. Their kind doesn't bother to think ahead. Jeez. Al-sama! Got it. Old man, just shut up for a sec. With what little composure he had left smoked away by the flames, Heinkel panicked, leaving Aldebaran to forcibly silence him with a reprimand. Due to his desire for the dragon's blood, Heinkel could not disobey Aldebaran, but be that as it may, the turmoil that came with being driven into a corner probably could not be treated the same ways as complaints or objections. I agree with Ye. This isn't an incendiary attack. More likely they're aiming to attack us with smoke. Unfortunately, I've got no way to endure a smoke assault. Ye, how about you? You're asking if I can endure the smoke? No dice. I may have anti-torture measures as a built-in resistance to poison, but no amount of training can stop you from becoming teary-eyed and coughing when inhaling smoke, you know? Sounds about right. And so, no choice but to run from the smoke. In order to avoid being smoked to death, they could reach no other conclusion. The only problem was, that was exactly what the opponent wanted them to do. Naturally, it was human instinct to flee from any danger before one's eyes, be it fire or smoke. And thus, the artificial wind that had come blowing their way alongside the smoke was an untouchable hunter, aiming to smoke Aldebaran's party out. I underestimated them, thinking that even with 500, they wouldn't be able to surround the whole forest. Smoke for flushing them out, and a draft to guide that smoke. With just that, whether it be a small force such as Aldebaran's, or even a certain degree of military host, it would have been possible to force them to a desired position. In doing so, Felt had completely surrounded the force that could not be fully encroached by 500 people. Or rather, it was the brain of the group. Piece of shit. They've really got us here. Clicking his tongue bitterly, Aldebaran pictured a map of the world in his head. His destination was still far, far to the west from here. Having already used up 1 day for rest and traversal, the time limit had shrunk from 7 days to 6. He could not afford to get tripped up more than necessary against Felt here, dealing with a drawn-out battle. Al-sama! Yay. Point us the way to the wind's flowing. Old man, follow Ye's directions and charge straight ahead. Chop down any trees that stand in the way. Got it. I can't hear you. I got it! Overwhelmed by Aldebaran's quick instructions, Hanko cried out in desperation. Then, in accordance with Ye's directions, Hanko quite literally cleared the path forward with his unsheathed sword. Following after his sturdy back, Aldebaran plunged into deep deliberation. After moving a great distance, it would become necessary to re-establish his territory. However, updating his matrix would mean losing the option to return to before the smoke gamut was enacted. At the very least, when Aldebaran had willingly exited the forest, Felt had not gone forth with this strategy of smoking him out. Of course, in that case, it would have ended up being a head-on collision with 500 people. Which path would be better? Ultimately, Aldebaran's victory was guaranteed. He had restrained the sword Saint Reinhardt van Astrea and had neutralized Natsuki Subaru. Not a single person in this world would be able to defeat Aldebaran. Thus, Aldebaran's victory was an absolute. So, what did he seek outside of victory? To accomplish that objective, outside of victory, which path would have the highest potential? Al-sama, Haigo-sama will die if you let him go by himself, you know? Right. Let's go! After a moment's deliberation, Aldebaran nodded as Ye called, and began to run. Simultaneously, he updated his matrix at that moment, redefining it. Once he prescribed the next starting point, he readily abandoned all attachment to the possibilities that existed up until a moment prior. Life was a series of choices that went not only for Aldebaran, but for everyone. Alright, so we're about 30 minutes in, we're about halfway there. I'm going to let you guys know Most choices were made in an instant, without any looking back on an unchosen alternative, but that was fine. Aldebaran, too, would do so whenever possible. What to eat for breakfast tomorrow? Which stock to put on first, the right or the left? The choices made amidst a battle on which his life was staked. he would treat them as equivalent to trivial choices of that sort. Huh. The alternatives he did not choose, the alternatives that were not chosen, there was no sense in clinging to them. Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru were merely people who occasionally had more chances than most to cling to the alternatives. Oh my god, this shit is fucking peak fiction. This shit is fucking peak fiction. Oh my god. That was a bar! That was a fucking bar! Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru were merely people who occasionally had more chances than most to cling to the alternatives. If he did not make that distinction, he would end up stuck in a standstill for eternity. Hanko-sama, the footing's getting worse, so take the right next. Take care of that big tree, please. Don't say it like it's so easy, you little... Oh, so amazing. As expected, you're strong when you're not against a living being. Despite having cut down a large tree as instructed, Heinkel was agitated for some reason, and ground his teeth, chasing after them. Aldebaran, the density of the smoke thickening. By way of the wind, the smoke had begun to enclose on them. In other words, an ambush is close at hand. Commanding the ambush unit, Ratchins was positioning his battle formation at an exit of the forest. In all honesty, he was filled with the urge to scream that he had been assigned a duty far beyond his capabilities. In the first place, the mere fact that Ratchin's life had somehow intersected with things such as the Sword Saint, the Divine Dragon, the Witch of Envy, and so on, felt like a nightmare to him. I mean, like, I get it, cause like, bro first meets Subaru in a fucking alley, like, just trying to, like, you know, get a living, make a living, get his life, like, together, whatever the fuck Ratchins was doing. Encounters Subaru, he's like, guards! The guard that comes is fucking Reinhardt. Reinhardt, like, fucking ends up making him join, like, the same team. They're now, like, a part of, like, the Royal Selection candidates, like, or, felt, like, their faction. And now he's, like, dealing with that. Like, the best knight that he has, like, is fighting the Witch of Envy. Like, the Witch of Envy, like, of course! Of course! Of course bro's gonna be cooked. What do you... Of course! It only makes sense. So... Where are we? God fucking damn it! Where the hell did my life take such a messed up turn? Scratching his head furiously, Ratchins let out an endless stream of complaints, trampling the grass beneath his boots in frustration. It was nothing more than a petty act of venting, but to Ratchin's irritations, the damned weeds only bent softly without breaking or tearing, even as he ground them underfoot. Worse still, they pushed back against his soul, stubbornly asserting their vitality. They were the very embodiment of weeds' shameless persistence, unyielding. Among them, Ratchins could not help but picture a few familiar faces, prompting a heavy sigh. Before he knew it, he had walked a great distance from where he had started. Yet, no matter where the wind scattered their seeds to take root, weeds remained weeds. Their blades might take on a slightly different hue. Their stems might grow a little thicker, but a weed would never become a tree or a flower. Fuck's sake! No matter where I end up, I can only ever live the way I know how, huh? Ratchins had only been told that by anyone in particular. Or, Ratchins had not been told that by anyone in particular, though he felt like everyone had told him the same thing, and so he clicked his tongue. However, unlike his voice from just before, there was no trace of gloom or resentment in that sound. All that remained was the burden of a troublesome task force upon him, and the resolve to see it through. And with that, just when a certain kind of defiance within him had finally settled, "Oi! There's movement!" The voice that raised the alarm belonged to one of the roughnecks stationed alongside Ratchins in the field. They were people of the Flanders criminal underworld, made of the same stuff as Gaston, Camberley, and Ratchins. No, this lot was even more hardened than them in terms of villainy. Sorry. It was strange to be standing shoulder to shoulder with them, but here, their familiarity with violence made them dependable. Drawn in by their reactions, Ratchins turned his gaze towards the forest. If things went according to plan, the helmet bastard and his companions, driven out by smoke, would burst out from here. Then, crushing them with the power of sheer numbers, would be Ratchins. Huh? The following movement, if it was not the helmet bastard that sprang from the forest, it was a cannonball. No, that was not quite right. To be precise, it was a massive tree, hurled with the force of a cannonball, spinning over end as it made a mad dash straight for Ratchin's formation. The trunk was thicker than Gaston's torso, and it was over 10 meters long. Sorry, I lost myself. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to take you out of the immersion. This unfriendly tree cannonball was barreled straight at the heart of their formation. Beholding the sight of that, the ruffians shouted, scrambled to flee in a panic. However, El Toro! Boom! A thunderous explosion rang through the sky, and a bright red flower of fire bloomed against the blue. The incoming tree shattered into countless pieces, and the force of the cannonball that by all rights should have torn a huge hole in the formation was now reduced to something that only hurt a little from the scattered fragments. And with his finger pointed skyward, Ratchins had made that happen. You fucks! This ain't the time to be pissing yourself. Wait, let me read that. You fucks! This ain't the time to be pissing yourselves. At times like this, the ones who are scared loose. Wait. At times like these, the ones who are scared loose. You're all heard 1,000 times, right? 100 times. Wait, what? I'm fucking it up. Chotto. You fucks! This ain't the time to be pissing yourselves. At times like these, the ones who are scared lose. You've all heard that 1,000 times, right? I keep fucking that up. Oh my god, it's 100. Same difference, right? Shouting at the bunch who had flinched in the wake of that attack, Ratchins drew the knife at his waist. He aimed the blade at the forest and turned his head to look around, asking, "Got that?" Frankly, due to his earlier frustration, the Roughnecks had been underestimating Ratchins, who was in charge of managing this location, and that reflection in their attitude. It was time to wipe that impression away. You can probably tell if you saw that just now, but we're the ones who got lucky. The helmet bastard's coming out of there at any moment now. We don't have any time to be letting our guard down. It happened just before he could finish his sentence. Oi! A voice cut out through the air, and the roughneck's gazes shifted away from him once more. Annoyed, Ratchins turned to face forward with anger in his Shihaku eyes. One after another, more giant tree cannonballs, each just as big or even larger than the last one, were flying towards them. God damn it all! Immediately, after he cursed, a series of bright explosions bloomed in the sky. An unexpected defeat blew their formation away. Ratchins could only watch as a large number of roughnecks were blown away, jostled by the impact, after which he clicked his tongue and raised his knife towards the woods again. The situation had dizzyingly changed. If the opponents were to continue procuring locally sourced ammunition, it would be Ratchins and his group left to their mercy. "Let's go! Hurry your asses up!" Roaring so loud that he felt his voice might crack, Ratchins charged in with a battle cry. Doing so would rouse their fighting spirit. Okay, I know I'm not even through this, but like, what is happening right now is actually so insane when you think about it, right? We got a taste of this in Arc 5 when Subaru was not on the battlefield to see everyone who was fighting, right? And although there were some sacrifices, by the time you guys are reading this, by the time you guys are understanding what's happening, we know that there were some sacrifices in Arc 5. But seeing that there's been so much happening without Subaru's like authority being able to have like that safety net to bring people back or to save people who have been lost, it makes the events that are happening right now so much more impactful and so much more eventful, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how things are going to play out. We just know that the people who are currently involved, they've been here this entire time. They've survived this long for a reason. So obviously they're not gonna just let everything just go by and like, you know, just keel over and die, right? They're gonna fucking fight. They're gonna fight till they have no breath. They're going to fight even beyond that, because they're going to make sure that whatever's been happening, like whoever's opposing them, they're not going to be able to rest in death or while living until this can be done. And this is why this is peak fiction. Dude, Arc 9? It's giving me vibes that it's gonna be as good as Arc 4. Not saying Arc 6, because Arc 6 it's too peak. It's too peak. But let us keep going, right? As was often the case in commonplace street brawls between ruffians, it was bad to be the first one hit. Surely enough, no matter how vicious a person might have been, their strength would plummet the moment they got hit. The idea that the more wounded and bloodied someone got, the stronger they became was just that, an idea. In reality, humans only became weaker as damage accumulated. The same applied to one's feelings. At that moment, Ratchet's side had taken the first hit in quite an unexpected way. That weakness caused by taking the first hit needed to be overridden with momentum. And so, charge! The hot-blooded and simple-minded crowd was easily inspired by Ratchet's emotion-filled voice. They furiously ran after Ratchet's lead, and with weapons in hand, they began closing in on the woods, and closing in, feeling them at his back. Ratchet would provide them further support with his next attack. Alcoa! Hand aimed at the heavens, Ratchet performed an incantation in a blood-curdling shout. In an instant, a gigantic fireball was born above Ratchet's head. Wait. What's crazy is that the first time that we see Ratchet's, like, his interaction with Amelia, or not the first time, but his interaction with Amelia, he's like, "Oh, you can use magic? It doesn't matter if you can use magic, you bitch." And then like, she used ice magic, which is fire magic, and like now look at him, like 8 arcs later, bro. Like, come on, dude. Like, you can't say that this shit is not. It's not peak fiction. It is peak fiction. It's peak fiction. The fact that I can remember something so minute as that, him not even being able to use magic, and look at him now, using magic to save, like, to help counterattack one of the most broken characters in the verse. Come on. Come on. Fuck. Man. In an instant, a gigantic fireball was born above Ratchet's head. It was a Goa-type spell from the fire attribute, of which the degree of power had suppressed the basic L and O classics by going straight to Al Classic, the highest tier. Anyone who possessed even a passing knowledge of magic would have known this, but it was a great achievement on Ratchet's part to recite the incantation and succeed in producing an enormous flame. He can use owl magic, bro. Like, dude, this is insane. This is insane. The morale of the ruffians rose visibly, and Ratchet gave a fireball momentum by shooting it into the sky, deliberately sending it high up into the air. Naturally, the next group of fallen trees shot out from the forest were aimed towards that fireball. No matter how many trees were incinerated, the opponent would stop at nothing to block that fireball. Dumbasses. Ratchet mocked his opponent by sticking out his tongue with a blah, decorated with a colorful ring at his tip. The large tree cannonballs were fired from the forest in vigorous succession, but most of them ended up missing their target. It was because the first shot had shattered the Algoa, which in reality was just a flattened and stretched out Goa, a paper mache just for show, and the remaining shots dug pointlessly into the plane. This was all an effort to reduce the damage received by Ratchet and his group of ruffians, by having the enemy waste ammunition attempting to intercept the foe Algoa. Oh, okay! Okay! Look at them strategizing like, yo, I'm gonna shoot you with my strongest attack! Watch this! And then they fucking fell for it. They fucking fell for it. Let's go. Okay. Still, with Ratchet's support, the group of 50 ruffians charged in nearly unscathed. And then, jeez, didn't you only get in because of Heinkel-sama got flustered? The moment he heard that sweet, relaxed voice of a woman, Ratchet's foot stopped. A bad feeling had taken over his whole body, and he instinctually stopped dead in his tracks. Such was not the case. It was true that a bad feeling had taken over his body, but he did not stop in his own volition. In an instant, he had lost all freedom of movement. Moreover, it was not just Ratchet's. The same had happened to the 50 ruffians who had charged into the woods with Ratchet's all at once. And the perpetrator of the act was. No matter how good I might be at fighting mini on one, there is such a thing as a limit, really. So said the red-haired woman, who looked down through the gaps of the trees at Ratchet and his group, who had been stopped in their tracks. Oh my god, this is just so fucking good. It's just so fucking good. A slender woman in a maid's uniform with a somewhat waifu design was watching the immobilized men who were there shouting in confusion and anger from midair. The woman's figure was high up in the trees. However, she was not using a tree trunk or branches as a foothold. She stood tall and proud in seemingly empty space, smiling as she watched Ratchet and his group, who had lost their ability to move. This was what Ratchet has discerned, only able to move his head and eyeballs. After all, I can only tie together about 100 people at once, yeah? That this woman, whose outrageous combat abilities could be rivaled by her even more terrifying personality, was accompanying the helmet bastard whom they were supposed to defeat. Utilizing the trees that Heinkel had cut down, it was an attack that ought to be called a fallen tree cannon. In order to implement such a thing without the use of the Divine Dragon's vast mana pool, it was necessary to make full use of physical labor on a level incomparable to that of making fried rice with whatever was on hand. Really now, you're so rough, and how you make use of me, Al-sama. When you combine cruel and usage, you get exploitation. With the help of Ye, who could not help but complain at every turn, they had raised several of the large trees cut down by Heinkel into thin air, creating a launch pad for them. Oh, okay. And in order to actually fire them, Aldebaran mobilized his scientific knowledge to, "Old man, on my signal, pull your arms as hard as you can. As hard as you can." It's not just that woman. I've also got some reservations regarding your attitude there, Aldebaran. remembering now, dragon's blood. Dragon's blood! Gah! Just give me the signal already! Ultimately, the application of scientific knowledge required to inquire an investment. Ultimately, the application of scientific knowledge required an investment in equipment, so Aldebaran had to rely on the physical prowess of Heinkel, whose veins were bulging as a result of poor treatment. Chased off by the smoke, they continued moving through the forest in a way that kept them falling further into their opponent's trap. Elite troops would naturally be lying in wait outside, ready to clash with Aldebaran's group. That was an issue that needed to be reduced to an extent. Old man! At a signal, Heinkel grit his teeth and exerted his arms. The muscles in his arms began to bulge, and even though he was an alcoholic who lamented his lack of talent, he achieved feats of strength in a dominant... The muscles in his arms began to bulge, and even though he was an alcoholic who lamented his lack of talent, he achieved feats of strength in a domain Aldebaran could never reach. With ferocity, the fallen tree cannon was fired. First would be a test fire, followed by hitting them with a second and a third. If the opponents thus got out of the way, it would be most satisfactory. Otherwise, pull him tight! Those brave men who would be crushed right in their nose, or so I'd expected. However, Heinkel-sama got so scared by the fireball. What are you, a beast? The moment the gargantuan fireball appeared in the sky, so large it could be seen even from outside the forest, an extremely shaken Heinkel fired a fallen tree cannon without waiting for Aldebaran's signal. As a consequence, they failed to destroy a majority of the enemy, resulting in them storming the forest. Thus, Ye had been pestering Heinkel. There was no avoiding that. After all, she was the only one who cleaned up the mess that resulted from this mistake. The enemy force was about 50 men who charged in, was halted by Ye's skill alone, by a weapon that had been strung up all across the surrounding area, stretching out from all 10 of Ye's fingers. Oh, it was the wires. Are these threads? Breathing heavily, a man seemed to realize the truth of what had bound his movements. He was a thug Aldebaran recognized. If you remember correctly, a former thug currently working for Felt, Ratchins. At Ratchin's words, Ye exclaimed with an "Oh," as she floated in the air. How perceptive! Of course, this isn't just any old sewing thread, you know. This is what's known as a shinobi technique, though I've never seen anyone else who could use it except me. As Ye spoke, she looked down on the men from high in the air. Although she appeared to be floating without relying on anything else, in reality, she did have a firm footing. Ye's specialty was a steel thread technique, which she had used to string threads up all throughout the forest. A thread user, so to speak. Amidst the number of kinds of epic weapons, this one's sitting near the top of my ranking. Wow, how rare. Did you just praise me, Al-sama? Is tomorrow the day spears come raining down? Don't worry. I was about to say that just because I like that Don't worry. I was about to say that just because I like the weapon. The user's a whole different matter. Ye stuck her tongue out at the reply. So without touching on her attitude, Aldebaran looked down upon the enemy below. Having borrowed the power of Ye's threads to climb atop the trees, he looked down on them. Even when one strained their eyes, Ye's steel threads were nigh impossible to perceive. Tightly strung up, they entangled Ratchins and the other adversaries in a manner akin to a spider web, completely restraining them. The ability to freely bundle together and skillfully handle all sorts of things was Ye's true value. They had not only used the steel threads to restrain the enemy, but had also been able to come up with a device such as their fallen tree cannon from earlier. There they had tied and raised up the cut down large trees in such a way that they would be sent flying in a spin when a thread was pulled. Oh, okay. So she's making like a little catapult, essentially. Coiling meaty threads around Heinkel's arms and having him pull them around like a workhorse was just another job for him, as a cog in their contraption. In any case, relative to the impactfulness of the fallen tree cannon's appearances, the damage it caused had been minimal. Ultimately, he had ended up passing by most of the enemy, but in reality, if that many people had come freely swinging at him without Ye, Aldebaran would have been in for some exhausting proceedings. Of course, like, yeah, if you can't like handle Reinhardt, like if you can't handle like 50 people coming at you like swinging weapons and shit, I can't imagine that you'd get away with doing it with Reinhardt. You know? As he had done in the Pleiades Watchtower, Aldebaran could handle the tag team of Garfield and Ezo in plain combat, but if there had been one more person there, it would have been a completely different story. In fact, the fact of his victory would not have wavered, but there was easily a possibility that his number of attempts would have changed by an entire degree of magnitude. So like he barely got by Garfield and Ezo. So like people who were trying to like hype up Al and or discredit Garf, like what y'all gotta know is that like my boy, he had that fucking shit on him. Like Garf is not getting his shit pushed in by fucking Al in normal circumstances. Of course, Al could just like keep redoing shit, so like it gives him a bit of a safety net. But if we're looking at things realistically, like Garfield alone, especially after arc 7 and 8, bro, he is enough to give Al more than like a fucking run from his money. But like at the same time, what we have to realize is that Al, he planned all of this, catching everyone off guard. He did this. He caught everyone off guard. He caught everyone at their weakest while they were lacking, and he still just barely was able to get past Garfield and Ezo. Like if there was a third person, literally, if Petra was there or like any third person, it would have been a completely different story. So that just goes to show, like, yeah, this man may be incredibly insane, like when it comes to like his powers, like and his abilities, but when it comes down to just like what he's capable of doing, I just want to like hold my Beyblade. Valkyrie, bro, come on, man, he locked that shit down. Like Garf and Ezo, like don't doubt their fucking strength. Come on, guys. All right. The ability to freely bundle together and skillfully handle all sorts of things was Ye's true value. They had not only used the steel threads to restrain the enemy, but had also been able to come up with a device such as their fallen tree cannon from earlier, where they had tied and raised up the cut down tree logs or large trees in such a way that would be sent flying in a spin when a thread was pulled. Coiling meaty threads around Heinkel's arms and having him pull them around like a workhorse was just another job for him as a cog in their contraption. In any case, relative to the impactfulness of the fallen tree cannon's appearance, the damages it caused had been minimal. Ultimately, they had ended up passing by most of the enemy, but in reality, if that many people had come freely oh, okay, I read that. Wait. When the fight's not one-on-one, the level of difficulty immediately explodes upwards for me. And here's the thing. Subaru only handles, he doesn't handle 1v1s. He only handles like okay, not saying only. He's handled 1v1s, 3v1s, 5v1s, 100v1s. Like, Subaru is the fucking GOAT. He's the GOAT. No one can argue that. I'm sorry. Like, you can't argue that. It's peak. The fact of his victory would not have wavered. Wait. Yeah. The fact of his victory would not have wavered, but there was easily the possibility that his numbers of attempts would have changed by an entire different Oh, I already read this. In that battle too, he had done as much as he could to prevent a 2-on-1, provoking Garfield and guiding him such that it would be a 1-on-1 in that space. In a 1-on-1, Aldebaran could find a path to victory even against Reinhardt. You mean a path of fucking escaping. Don't hype it up like you fucking won. Don't fucking hype it up like you won, because you lost. You got your shit pushed. He was fucking debuffed. He was in the worst possible situation. He had people that he could have saved, but didn't. Like, he was like, yo, run him. He was like, run him. Like, come on. And even still, with broken arms, like disabled arms, only with his feet, like, you know, he's fighting Satella right now, bro. And he's been fighting this whole time, like, come on. Nah. Reinhardt's like one of the most broken fictional characters, I'm sorry. I said one of, not the most. Come on, relax, guys. One of the most broken fictional characters. However, the more a number of opponents increased, the more astronomical a number of attempts he would need in order to find a path to victory. Hence, Aldebaran was grateful for the presence of Ye, who was much more adept in fighting a large number of people than he was. And the value of Ye's techniques could also be found elsewhere. Oi! What were you going to do with those guys? Are you planning to kill them all? Before he could explain that value, Heinkel voiced a question. Heinkel, left on the ground as Aldebaran and Ye used those threads to escape into the sky, made a bitter face as he witnessed Ratchins and the others entrapped by the steel threads. Heinkel's sword would falter when up against somebody powerful, but the reason for his bitter face in that moment was likely on from that sort of cowardice of his. Heinkel's words would falter when up against somebody powerful, but the reason for his bitter face in that moment was likely one that differed from that sort of cowardice of his. In response to that cowardice, Aldebaran shook his head and, nah, there's no need to kill them. Rather, it's smarter to leave them wounded. The dead won't be paid any mind, but the living will need to be treated. This way will leave the opponent with less hands to spare. Oh, look at him! Look at him! I see. Yeah, that's right. I was just thinking the exact same thing. Oh my, when you two old misters come to an understanding like that, Ye-chan feels left out. It was clear that upon hearing Aldebaran's response, Heinkel felt relieved. Nonetheless, perhaps not touching upon the fact that Ye's own sort of compassion. In truth, it was essential for Aldebaran's party to weaken the enemy forces. For that purpose, they would have to act wisely instead of recklessly taking their opponents' lives. That was why. What? Feeling relieved now that you hear you're being spared, punk? And which one of us is really feeling relieved there? You drunkard? Seriously, the hair and that look in your eyes, even the part outside of that, you really resemble him, you fucker. Flashing his teeth in a smile. The thug, no, Ratchins glared at Heinkel. Rather than his threatening stare, it was the contents of Ratchins' words that silenced Heinkel. From his reaction, Aldebaran that had not let that conversation progress any further. In order to interject, he leaned over from a thread wound. From his reaction, Aldebaran judged that he ought not let that conversation progress any further. In order to interject, he leaned over from a thread wound across or around the trees. Also, that goes for you too, helmet bastard. Oh? Both this drunkard and you. You're too relaxed. You need a taste of some more hardships, dumbasses. Being called names, he was involuntarily taken aback by the irrelevancy and lack of substance contained in those words. But right away, he realized that Ratchins did not bear the eyes of a man who did things without meaning. The moment he realized, Aldebaran was made aware that the goal had been to take him aback. Thus, he was too late, and the compensation for his tardiness was paid immediately. What dull as a pig you are. After all, the arrival of that voice was coincident with the first of the King Pig crushing Aldebaran, caught in his Sorry, I'm so good. I'm sorry. I know I'm at the end. That's why I'm like, okay. After all, the arrival of that voice was coincident with the first of the King Pig crushing Aldebaran, caught in his distracted moment as he was, with a punch that felt akin to getting hit by a cannon. That must be felt. Oh, what's the first comment? Peak. Alright guys, I'm gonna like get ready, like go into the next chapter reading, so I don't have like too much to say about this. It's peak! It's peak! It's peak! It's so amazing! You can't go better, you can't get better than this! I haven't read bro, like we're what, 19 chapters into arc 9? Come on, bro. It's fucking peak. This has been your boy Shaq, aka Black Noski Suru / Black Goku. If you guys enjoy the video / want to see like more content like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I have had a busy schedule, but the more love that you guys show for these videos, like the more that I'm gonna want to get them out sooner than later. So look, I'm gonna go based on like a time thing, and you know, by half the time I'm gonna get everything out, but y'all have to show me that you actually want this. This shit's fire, man. This shit's fire. You're reading this shit with me blind, you know? And if you're reading it a little bit ahead, no worries. But I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Until next time, it's been your boy. Peace.